Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad that you're joining us. We are going to get started in just a minute or so as our other attendees jump into the Zoom session here. So welcome, and we'll get started shortly. For those of you just joining us, we are going to get started in just a quick minute here as our other attendees join us. Thanks for your patience. Great. All right. Well, I will go ahead and kick us off. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wyatt. I'm the Deputy Director of Global Admissions for Schwarzman Scholars, and I'm really excited to be joined tonight by my incredibly talented and brilliant colleagues on our U.S. Global Admissions team. We are really excited to spend the next hour or so with you, getting to know more about the program through the lens of our admissions team. So this is our life's calling. It's what it's what wakes us up every morning. It is something that all of us are incredibly passionate about and believe in. And we, all of that because we really do believe that Schwarzman Scholars is the most consequential and important program that exists out there today. And it's speaking to and working to solve extremely important and significant problem that we'll also talk about tonight. So we are really excited that you decided to take some time out of your day to spend with us. And we're excited what that means, hopefully, is that you are working on your application to join the 8th cohort of Schwarzman Scholars. And speaking of that, we are now 19 days, 3 hours, and 56 minutes away from our application deadline to join that 8th cohort. That is to join the cohort that will start in Beijing in August of 2023. So right around the corner, and we're really looking forward to it. We are entering one of our most exciting times of the year. It's both the time when our new cohort arrives in Beijing. We now have scholars who are in transit, who are quarantining and arriving at Schwarzman College in Beijing, which is a really exciting milestone for the program each year. We're thrilled to welcome the 7th cohort. And it's also the time when we get to start this new adventure and this new journey of selecting the next cohort of Schwarzman Scholars to start the following year. So we're thrilled that you joined us tonight. As I mentioned, I'm joined by my very talented team. A lot of us are represented here tonight. There's a few of us, a few of the team who are traveling and not able to join us, but send their best regards. But we have an amazing core group of talented admissions officers here with us tonight. So I am going to just ask everyone to do a quick introduction, and I will first pass it off to my colleague, Lisa.
Thanks, Wyatt. Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Yu. I'm part of the Global Admissions team, and my title is Admissions Operations Manager. I oversee a lot of the application side, selection side, and the data side of the application. And what I look forward to is deadline day, because I love seeing the numbers and how diverse each cohort is. I will pass it on to my colleague, Alicia.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So happy to have you here joining us today. My name is Alicia Pan. I am an outreach and events officer on the team, and I've been for a part of the organization for almost 3 years now. And what I'm really excited about this upcoming cycle too is just every year, what I love about admissions is the cyclical aspect of our job. So just thinking back from last year, where we were in the world and the year prior, and just not only personally, but professionally, where we all are today, and looking forward to having this be another little bookmark of a year that's passed for me. So really excited to see this come through. Passing it over to Tom.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Tomesco. You can see on your screen, my first and last names both start with T-O-M, so you can call me Tom Tom if you like. And I am the newest addition to the admissions team here. So I'm still getting to know Schwarzman Scholars. The thing that I'm the most excited about for this upcoming admission cycle is getting to meet all of you and learn about you through your application. It is so fun and cool to hear about your stories, what makes you passionate, and why you think you would really thrive in this program. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. So I will pass it off to Sarah.
Wonderful.
Thank you, team. My name is Sarah. I'm Outreach and Selection Officer with Schwarzman Scholars, and I am very excited for selection season. Like Tom, I love hearing your stories, and one thing that I'm always very excited about is hearing the types of issues and challenges that you see in our world that you're interested in combating and finding solutions to, and using Schwarzman Scholars to accomplish those goals. So very excited that you're here and really excited to read your application.
Great, thanks team. And I'll just add in, as I look ahead to the process, one of the things I'm really excited about is the self-discovery that happens throughout this, the application selection process for Schwarzman Scholars. For those of you who have started your application, you'll see that the application is designed to really facilitate kind of a self-reflection, some introspection, some discovery of your own to really articulate what you care about, what values drive your leadership, what do you want to accomplish with your career as a leader, what kind of impact do you want to have, and how do you see this program really being a catalyst for that. So it's a fun process. We often talk to applicants after the selection process and hear just how beneficial of a process it was to go through the Schwarzman Scholars application selection process. So I'm excited for each of you to go on that journey with us. So before we dive into question and answer tonight, I just want to take care of some just logistics for the evening. So Alicia and I will walk you through that. First of all, I just want to encourage you to engage with us beyond tonight. Many of you have signed up for advising sessions already. Many of you have joined other webinars, maybe you even met us on the road in person this year. As we move through our outreach season. But I encourage you from today moving forward to our September 20th deadline, I do encourage you to keep the conversation going, whether it be emailing us at admissions@schwarzmanscholars.org, checking out our YouTube channel where we have lots of content, everything from our feature spotlight series from last year and this year to lots of other engaging content from Schwarzman College, from our scholars and our alumni directly to really help you get to know the program more. So I encourage you to spend some time doing that and getting to know us more as we walk towards the deadlines together. In terms of some best practices for tonight for Zoom, we're going to start out and really dive into some of the most frequently asked questions we get from prospective applicants around the world. So we just want to get those out of the way right at the beginning because we have some really helpful insights to share with you all that will hopefully help you in your application. And then we're going to dive into a live Q&A. So tonight, as we do that, we'll ask that you use the Zoom Q&A feature. So that will allow you to submit a question to us through that box, and then on the back end we'll see your questions come through and answer as many of them as we can tonight. And if we don't have enough time to answer all of them, we encourage you to just follow up with us and we'd love to continue the conversation as I mentioned. So we'll start out with the frequently asked questions. We'll dive into the Q&A and then we'll go from there. So before we do that, we're going to use one of Zoom's features to make tonight a little bit more engaging and interactive with you all. So to do that, I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague, Alicia.
Thanks so much, Wyatt. So everyone in attendance tonight or this morning, want you all to participate in this 3-question poll that we're going to launch right now. So the 3 questions that we are serving with those in attendance today, 1 is, what's your current application progress? 2, what do you see as the most challenging aspect of the application right now? And then 3, what do you hope to learn today, which is multiple choice. So I'm going to launch this right now, and I'll give you all a few, maybe no more than 2 minutes max, but please answer them. That'd be really useful.
Great. So as those questions populate on your screen and you think about those answers, I want to make the most of our time tonight and dive right into our Q&A. So as we do this, I encourage you to start thinking of some questions that you'd like to ask us live, and we'd be happy to chat through those. And we'll dive right into one of the questions that we get the most, which is on one of the short answer questions on our application. You'll recognize it if you've been working on it. It is a question that really, in short form, asks you to reflect on what aspect of the Schwarzman Scholars mission you connect with the most, and really reflect on that. Tell us about that. Why does it connect with you and who you are as a leader, and what you see your leadership trajectory looking like moving forward, and really how that aligns with the program. So it is a common question we get where candidates will ask, what is the mission of Schwarzman Scholars? I don't see a mission statement section on the site, or I'm struggling to find it. Where is it? And part of this is this is actually very intentional. And part of it, the journey of this application, is really for you to do some research on the program and really discover what the mission of Schwarzman Scholars is. But because you've taken the time to join us tonight, and we promised to give you some helpful insights, I want to give you just a very short articulation of what our mission is and why this program exists. Steve Schwarzman, who's the founder and CEO of Blackstone here in the United States, through his long and storied career in the business world globally, noted around 10, 12 years ago that one of the biggest and most significant problems or issues that he saw in his career was really a gap in understanding between leaders in China and leaders in other parts of the world, leaders from the United States to all other areas of the world. He noted a gap in trust, a gap in communication, dialogue, collaboration. And as Steve reflected on what the future is going to look like, he wisely noted that if that gap is not addressed for the next generation of leaders, that will ultimately lead to conflict as China continues to lead on the global stage, along with many other actors around the world. If that misunderstanding is at the foundation of global politics and the global order, it's going to lead to extremely negative outcomes for the world, right? And so as Steve thought about his own philanthropic work and the legacy that he wanted to leave, he decided to really focus in on this issue, which he really believes, and we believe is the greatest geopolitical issue of our time. It's really addressing this gap that we've seen. And so Steve created Schwarzman Scholars to ultimately create a network of leaders from around the world, from every sector, every industry, every country on the face of the earth, who will work together over the course of their careers to ultimately build mutual understanding, to build trust, to build communication, and to ultimately work together to solve the problems that I know we can all agree are only solvable with the nations of the world working together. So it is in that spirit that Steve created the program, and that the 11 months that you have at Schwarzman's College is really just the catalyst for that. It's the idea of bringing the next generation of leaders from across China and from around the world together to live and learn together for a year, and then sending you out for the ultimate purpose of the program, which is really your lifelong engagement with the mission of building mutual understanding between China and the rest of the world. So that's why we do what we do. And I know as we all look at the headlines currently, we can all agree that this is an incredibly important mission. It's one that is extremely relevant to today's time, to today's generation, to the future. And you as a young leader, the fact that you're considering that and considering joining us in making this mission happen is really encouraging to us. It gives us hope for the future, and it's really why we are here tonight on a Thursday evening in New York City, spending time with you all, because we really believe this is the most important work we could be doing with our careers. That's why we're here to support you. So that is my kind of advice on the short answer question. Another common question we get is about an optional part of the application that we really encourage you to complete, which is our video. And to tell you a little bit more about that and to give you some advice, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Sarah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wyatt. And thank you for that incredible explanation of kind of our why and why we're here. The video is something that we do get a lot of questions about, and in the scope of a lot of the other parts of the application, this is certainly not one that requires the most attention, although I sometimes feel like with the questions and anxiety surrounding it, some prospective scholars do think that it is at that level. I think the key to the video is allowing us to get to know you on another level. Our cohorts are communities, right? And we want to see how you would be a part of this community, how you would get involved at the college or Tsinghua University at large. So I think some great, wonderful Videos that we've seen have been folks playing instruments, singing opera, showing us around their backyard, their pets, interviewing a family member, making a cup of tea that they really enjoy and that calms them. It's a way for us to kind of see you in a grounded way. And I'll also mention in terms of production value, there's a lot of people that say, well, do I need to rent some kind of equipment? And not at all. The majority of videos that we see are shot on a phone or laptop. Just like we're doing now. So this does not have to be Hollywood quality at all, but rather, allowing us to get to know you on another level that we would see from other parts of your application. And I think I will hand it off to Lisa. Tell us a little about letters of recommendation.
Sure. So Sarah, mentioned the video. A lot of people get anxieties about that, but in terms of recommendation letters, I would say that's definitely one of the more important aspects of our application. You are required to, submit 3 letters of recommendation. So with, less than 20 days away from the deadline, we highly recommend that if you have not received all 3 letters yet, or you're just starting out your application, still 20 letters of recommendations are due at the same time that the application deadline. So you should be checking in with your recommenders, but more so than that, you really should be talking to your recommenders, explain, why you're applying to Schwarzman Scholars, maybe talk about some past experiences that you shared. So if this is a professor, maybe you can ask your professor, like, what about me really stood out to you? Like, what are some things that we've observed on? This is a project I worked on. If this is a mentor, maybe you can talk about, your relationship. The mentor can talk about their relationship with you as an applicant, things that they observed in you. If this is like in a colleague or manager, the same thing, a project that was challenging that you overcame, or really exciting, something that you helped on. So beyond than just saying, this is a A+ applicant who did really well in their class. So, just think about that in terms of tips, and you really should be checking in with your recommenders, because you really should be getting all 3 letters of recommendation. And I will bring it over to Felicia, who will talk about leadership roles and recognitions.
Sure, and something to just add as well, I want to emphasize our admissions process is going to be holistic. We read every complete part of your application, and so the strongest, most competitive applicants, they're really able to marry all these different aspects of the application that we are all talking about right now, and we get a really comprehensive, complete understanding and picture of you in our mind's eye. And so really that's something that I just want to impress upon everyone is, really thinking as a collective whole. This is how you're able to create your leadership narrative to us. And so there's certainly this other aspect of our application that's rather unique, is this leadership roles and recognitions component of our application. And this is not the same thing as your resume or your CV. Many times people might say, oh, I've held this title, I've held this position, and I'm just going to list that all out. I want you to think critically here. Just having a title does not necessarily equate to being a leader. So we are looking for you to leverage and utilize this space to explain to us how you have gone above and beyond just what is required of this job description of your role or the parts that you play in an organization. So this is, again, you have a lot more space in comparison to your resume or CV. So you should give us some more context and better understanding this organization. Tell us the cause and effect. Give us a better understanding of, who are the movers and shakers, what happened beforehand, what were the outcomes after. And again, this is a great opportunity too for all of our applicants to think critically about how they are leaders and how in the communities that you define yourself. So even though you might not hold, quote, a high up leadership title in an organization, you certainly may have influenced it positively and are a leader in that way. So we really want you to think about your scope, how you define that, And then take advantage of, again, giving us more context about that organization and what you did there. And in a way, that's also helpful for you because that gives you more space in your letters, in your statement of purpose, and also your leadership essay to really share out more about your mindset, what you have done in that setting without setting the scene and, taking up a valuable real estate in that sense of just giving us more understanding of the background when you could really be sharing with us more about your unique mindset and how you view that situation at hand. So that's something that I really wanted to focus on and want to ask Tom with you too, based on your admissions experience, how to address these essays. Any other good tips that you want to share out to those in attendance today?
Sure. So the tip that I always come back to that I think is really important is to not shy away from what actually makes you really excited and what makes you unique. I think we see all the time applicants kind of tailoring their application to what they think a competitive Schwarzman Scholar looks like, or what they think we want to see. And we don't want you to flatten yourself like that. So if you have some kind of interest that you're really into, that you can see really blooming and blossoming in this program, don't shy away from it just because you think it might be a little weird or something. That's something you should lean into and give oxygen to in your essays. So yeah, do not be afraid of what makes you different from other applicants or unique in this process. That's what's going to make you successful. So really trust your intuition, trust what makes you passionate, and trust that that'll be a valuable add to our program.
Well said. Couldn't agree more. Thank you for that, team. As we transition to one last question that's frequently asked, I just want to ping everyone to start entering your questions through the Q&A box. We've had a couple great ones come through so far, but feel free to use that feature to communicate with us, and then we'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible in the next short time here. So before we do that, I just want to ask a question or pose a question that is frequently asked, especially given the current context we're operating in, is will the program be in person in Beijing in August of 2023 when you would start this program as a Schwarzman Scholar? And just to give you a more thorough update on what I mentioned at the beginning of tonight's session, is we are really excited that our 7th cohort of Schwarzman Scholars are in transit or actually arrived in Beijing. It's a mix of kind of a rolling arrival over the next couple of weeks as we begin our orientation. This is a huge milestone for the program every year. As I mentioned, we're thrilled to have the scholars in Beijing at Schwarzman College at Tsinghua University. And obviously over the past 2.5 years, safety, as always, has been our #1 priority, really making sure our scholars are safe and able to learn and live together safely. And so, we have an entire team in New York and in Beijing who are constantly monitoring safety protocols, the evolving nature of the pandemic in China and on a global scale. And we're really thrilled that we're in a position right now where we can welcome the scholars to Beijing, and we anticipate and look forward to welcoming the 8th cohort to Beijing in August of 2023. So I hope that's helpful context as you consider applying. Before we transition to open Q&A, I just want to ping over to Lisa. Lisa, do you mind telling us a little bit more about the, if there's any impact that COVID, I'm thinking if I'm a prospective applicant and COVID's impacted either a grade or it's impacted my ability to finish a course or something about my college experience and I'm applying this year, where might I share that with the admissions team?
You throws that to me or Alicia, sorry.
Lisa, over to you, yes.
Yeah, so if you have a transcript that, maybe it just says pass fail for one of the semesters or a full year, depending on where you attended university, that's completely okay. And we, we're a global admissions team, so we have a lot of experience reading a variety of transcripts. So, don't worry about that. Even if it's pass fail, or even if it's a different sort of system that's not a numeric GPA, that is okay. But if there are, extenuating circumstances that you would like to explain that you think that we may not understand from just glancing at your transcript, then you can definitely put that under the clarification comments that's under the additional information section of your application, and provide a very brief description about reference it, of course, reference your transcript if that's what it is about, and explain why you think we may not understand something. And that goes for not just your transcript, but other aspects of your application too. But again, clarification comments should really only be used for extenuating circumstances and not just another space for you to type in a short answer essay.
Great, thanks for that, Lisa. Super helpful. I'm going to dive into the live Q&A in just a minute here, but before we do that, I'm going to turn it over to Alicia, who's going to show us the results of the poll.
Yeah, thanks so much, Wyatt and team, and thank you all for participating in the poll earlier today. Just sharing out these results with you all right now. And so we can see that a lot of people are working on their application right now, and I'd say jayo, which means let's go or go for it in Mandarin. And you can see here, I think the main takeaway that I want to press upon everyone is that you are not alone in this process. There are so many other people attending this live. There are many people who are going to be listening in on this recording. So those questions that you have, keep them coming. You might say, oh, that's a silly question to ask, but no doubt there's going to be other people who might have a similar question in mind. We're going to try our best to leverage this time that we have together to address them all. So thanks again. Off to you, Wyatt.
Great, thanks, Alicia. We had a great question come in about the application and really the weight of what we look at in the process. So thinking about, is it based on past leadership experience or kind of what you want to do with the future? Excellent question. The application process and the selection process for Schwarzman Scholars, I'll dive in on this and feel free to jump in, anyone else who'd like to add as well, is focused on a concept that Steve likes to call demonstrated leadership. So we are trying to get an understanding of how you as a leader in your life so far, in whatever context you operate in, that's beyond your college campus, in your organization or company, in your community on a local, national, or global scale, how have you as a leader been successful at gathering a group of people around an idea that you care about, that you're passionate about, and motivating and leading that group to get something done on that issue of significance? How did you work with people whose values are different from your own to accomplish that mission? And that really is based on what you've done to date, right? And the question we're trying to ask really is, based on that experience, based on what you have demonstrated as a leader in your life so far, as an admissions committee, we're trying to answer the question, based on that experience, can we look ahead 10, 20, 30 years down the road from now and see you and really bank on you as being a leader of impact in your field and your context in the future? So that's the question we're trying to ask through the process. Obviously, your trajectory, the path that you see yourself taking, how you see the program and our mission intersecting with that, and what you want to accomplish as a leader in your career in the future is a really important part of that as well. So that's what the mission question is about. Your leadership essay, your statement of purpose is really the best opportunity to really articulate that. So I would say it's both, but that experience piece to date is a really important metric for us as we kind of look ahead to the future and your fit for the program. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Great. All right, we will dive into our next question here about reapplying. Sarah, there's a question about, can you reapply? Can you reapply multiple times, and any advice for reapplicants? Sarah, I'll turn it over to you for this one.
Thanks, Wyatt. Yes, so I did see those questions, and it's a great one. It's actually a topic of one of our webinars that is on our YouTube channel. So I will answer the question, but also refer you to that wonderful resource where I think we've had scholars who can speak of their own experiences reapplying. So yes, you can reapply up until 28, our age limit. And we do have quite a number of scholars who have gone through the process twice, 3 times even, and were successful on their final try. And I think there's a lot of ways in which you can work with the material that you've already submitted in the past. But of course, we want you to always reflect and think about how you can reframe your application to have better outcomes. So I think one thing that we've found is that when folks have gone through this process, maybe once or twice before, they feel like they perhaps feel a little less nervous, or like they've been able to really exemplify their leadership in the past and how they want to project that forward. One thing I will also mention is that if you are reapplying, there's another section of the application that will appear in the application process, asking you what has changed within the last year. My recommendation is usually, if you can't think of what to write in that section, you might need maybe another year to think about your application to Schwarzman Scholars, because we are looking for that change over time, right? Maybe you stepped into a new position at work, or you've taken on a new project, or it's the way that you want to think about global affairs in China and how it relates to your trajectory. So I think that's a really helpful launching pad to think about as a reapplicant. And again, I'll refer to the video on our YouTube channel, and knowing for these scholars that are prospective scholars that are reapplying, to have really that courage. I know that it can't be easy to not be successful your first or second time around, but I think it's a great experience to try again for that. Thanks, Wyatt.
Totally agree, Sarah. And I will add that we've had reapplicants who have been admitted and are a part of every cohort, starting with the second. So that's should be encouraging to all of you who may be considering reapplying. Lisa, I want to turn over to you to talk a little bit more about the recommenders. We've had several questions come in about who are, what are the exact requirements, but any recommendations on who to select as a recommender. Could it be someone who this candidate actually mentored or through the process? What are the requirements for the recommender for our candidates today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some guidelines on our application. So if you're generally still a student or in your undergrad or master's program, we hope you can get more academic references. So from your professor or your TA or mentor, those are preferable. We understand if you've graduated for a few years and is currently working, or a young professional, then you definitely will tend towards having more professional references from like your manager or employer or colleague. So that's really up to you to decide. But just think about, who knows you the best. Don't just go after someone who has, the fancier title, but doesn't really know you as well. So for that applicant who said, I've mentored someone, think about your relationship with that person. If that person can really speak to you as a leader, as a great mentor, then I say, yeah, that would be a great reference to have. But beyond that, maybe you want to choose someone who is higher level than you, or if you're 1 year out from school, maybe you can get an academic letter.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Alicia on our team, we're really lucky to have her tonight as someone who helps oversee our events, and one of those events is our interview process that happens every year. Alicia, we've had a couple questions come in about what's after you submit your application, after you are selected for an interview. What happens? What's the interview like? What's going to happen this year?
Sure, that's a great question, Wyatt. And so everyone, once you submit the application, the team is on September 20th. That's when the team starts reviewing all of those files, and we do this holistic review that I mentioned to you all earlier. And then over a period of time, we are going to identify a selected number of interview candidates. And so those will be done this year virtually. And so what's going to be, it's going to be an interview panel. And so we strongly believe that the leaders of today will be able to identify the leaders of tomorrow. And so we have many leaders in many different sectors, countries of citizenship, perspectives. They will be a part of this virtual panel that you will participate in. And they're going to have just another interview. It's going to be more informational. It's going to be all based on what you have provided to us in your application. So they're going to just be asking you more deeper questions, asking you to flesh out a little bit more about your perspective, what things have impacted you and influenced how you have become the person that you are, the leader that you are today. And so with that interview process, we will then be able to discern and suss out the 8th cohort. So that's a quick overview, but what you should do, everyone, is just stay tuned and definitely check your emails and make sure that our communications are coming through. So, for all the emails that we have right now, make sure that they're not going into your junk inbox. Make sure that they are not spammed. And then certainly you will receive notification from us via email. What would happen is every single time we make a decision, you're going to first receive an email notification, then you will go and log in through your own account, which you have opened up to create your application using that same login information, and then it will give you those decision notification letters. So make sure, please, you just keep checking your email and you will hear from us primarily through there. Anything else to add, Wyatt?
Yeah, super helpful, Lisa. I think one question we had, just a couple of questions related to this that I'll just answer quickly is, who's a part of this process? Who reads the applications, et cetera? So after the application deadline on September 20th, we've created a process to really evaluate leadership as it is, looks like in different contexts and regions of the world. So we have a team of about 100 readers, including our amazing team here and many other really talented leaders from around the world who have expertise on what leadership looks like, what academic excellence and intellect looks like, what character looks like on the ground in regions around the world. So your application will be evaluated by multiple readers who are looking at your application through that lens and really answering the question of is this candidate going to be a leader of impact? We'll ultimately select about 300 candidates who will be invited to interview, as Alicia mentioned, and eventually we will select a class of 150 scholars for the 8th cohort. 120 of those will be from outside of China. 30 of those will be from China, and we look forward to going through this process. It's one of our favorite times of the year, and we're excited to kick it off in 19 days. So with that, we'll move on to some other questions. One question that came in is about, what is the expectation of the question? Tell us something about yourself the admissions committee would not otherwise know based on the other parts of your question. Any team members have any insights on how you might approach this question? Alicia?
I can take a first stab at that, sure. And so as you go through our application right now, you'll see for our other essay prompts, they're very intentional, the way that we've crafted it. And so for that, this is an opportunity for you to just, again, share another very impactful, perhaps crucible moment that you have encountered in your life so far that has really shaped your life view and your world view. So they could be simple things like habits that show us more about your mentality and how you set yourself up for success in the day. You could share more about things that are not specifically related in your leadership essay, but again, totally informs the way you view the world. So you could take it in many different ways, but there is still something that, intangibly, if you were to know something about me, you need to know this, right? And so it might not be exactly, again, this leadership example that you're going to showcase in your essay. It may be a little bit a part of your statement of purpose, but that's still not even the case. But it's, again, I think the way I always frame it is like, if you were to know this about me and this is who I am, one of my essence things, you got to know this. It could be as serious as something, again, that's a life crucible moment, or it could be as another aspect of it that is, again, you need to understand this is where I grew up in, this is the context that really has shaped and altered my worldview. So that's my first stab at answering that.
I'll just jump in really quickly, a funny story to sort of the latter example of Alicia's advice there, that one scholar that we have coming into the cohort wrote her additional information on this Instagram platform that she has for this specific kind of dessert that she really likes. And that she has, when she's moved about the world and gone to college and post-college, that she eats these desserts and rates them, takes photos of them, puts them on Instagram. It has quite a big following, actually. It actually did come up in her interview. And I think it was a really nice way for us to get to know her. And she talked about how it tied to her identity and a little bit about how it reminded her of home, what home meant to her. So I think that's a good example that resonated, that I think allowed us to see her in a different light, but also had a sense of play, which I think was really nice.
Great, agreed. Another question that came in, a couple of them actually speak to, what else are we looking for in the process? Leadership experience, what does academic excellence look like? And I'll just dive in and tell you three pillars of the process, and then I'll ask for other input. Our process is based on leadership, intellect, and character. The leadership piece we've talked a lot about. The intellect piece, we're obviously looking for academic excellence. This is a very challenging, rigorous academic graduate program at China's top university, one of the top ranking research universities in the world. So we want to make sure that as a scholar, you're going to be able to succeed academically at the college. But beyond academic excellence, we're really looking for scholars who are able to come up with solutions to the complex problems that you see around you in your world every single day. So we're looking for that through your leadership essay, through your letters of recommendation, really trying to get a sense of, have you been able in your life and in your leadership career so far to do just that? And that's something really important to us, because ultimately we want our Schwarzman Scholars, and we know our Schwarzman Scholars will go on to use their intellect as a leader to really solve problems in their field, in their country, on a global scale. So that's why that part of the process is so important. And then the character piece is extremely important as well as the third cornerstone of the process, which is really focused on that piece that I mentioned earlier of, how do you work with others whose values or backgrounds or perspectives are completely different from your own? Are you able to bridge the gap between perspectives and get something done together? What values actually drive your leadership? Why are you doing what you do? Are you doing what you've done as a leader and what you've accomplished? And what values drive you as you look ahead? So those are topics that are also touched on in the application, but will obviously come out even more in the interview. Tom has been in the admissions field, as he mentioned, just joined us recently. We're really honored and excited to have him on our team, but has had an amazing career so far working in the admissions field. And I'd love to hear from you, Tom, any reflections you have on this process we call holistic admissions, and what that looks like here at Schwarzman Scholars.
Yeah, I was just about to jump in, actually. So I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that this is a really contextual process. A lot of applicants apply thinking that they can't explain things to us. So if there was something that was affecting your academic performance, or something that was affecting your ability to participate in activities outside of your job or outside of your school, or limited your capacity for taking on leadership responsibilities, those are things that you can explain to us and we will be very understanding about. So don't feel like you have to hold back and act like you weren't working with the context that you were in. That's something that we welcome as part of our review, and is really important to understanding you as a whole person. So yeah, don't be shy if there's something that is affecting your application in a really significant way. More often than not, we will be understanding.
Great, thanks for that, Tom. We have a few minutes left here, and I want to close by diving into a question that I'd love all of us to answer. And it is a question that we get a lot and we think about a lot because it really drives our work. And the question is, why Schwarzman Scholars? Why now? So why, as a candidate of this program, wherever they may be in the world right now, why should they consider this program, and why should they consider it right now and applying this cycle? So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to kick us off, and then we'll all share our insights, and then I'll tell you about how to follow up with us if we weren't able to answer your question tonight. Lisa, over to you.
Actually, I haven't put that much thought thinking about why for myself. Well, I can kind of say why I did this program. I've actually lived in China for 3.5 years in Shanghai, and I would say that's probably one of the most transformative 3.5 years of my early career, and also led me on this path to working for Schwarzman Scholars. So I would say, go for it. If you're unsure, you don't need to have China experience. You don't need to be a China hand. So that's another important aspect for those who are still hesitant, thinking that they need to talk about, anything related to China to be eligible for this program. So I just think, if this is what you are interested in, just apply. I'll pass it over to Alicia.
That's exciting. One of the most amazing things about this job and my specific role as an outreach and events officer and curating these virtual events that we've been hosting for the past 2.5 years, and now some in-person events as we slowly move out into this into late 2022 and 2023, looking forward to the next outreach cycle. I've been just so energized to connect with our alumni and prospective applicants. And so why Schwarzman Scholars? Why now? I think for me, really, it's about the people that are really drawn to this mission. They're drawn to this organization. We're going into our 8th cohort right now, and there's still this magic of, okay, we have a better sense of our identity. We have a sense of this program, yet we're still mavericks. There's always more things to do, things to explore. And the people that are seeking Schwarzman Scholars, they are excited and fired up about the unknown. They want to do the work. They want to explore. They want to play. And so it's really about the people. And for now, especially with the way the world is currently shaped, this opportunity for all of us to connect in person and also virtually all over the world. It's just awesome. It's so cool to connect with you all. So I say now is such a cool time to really appreciate the global nature of our world and also this program. Over to you, Tom.
Yeah, so I think we're coming out of this period where there wasn't a whole lot of in-person cross-cultural connection because of the global pandemic and all these restrictions around it. So now the world is opening back up again. And I think everyone in the world is really hungry for opportunities for cross-cultural communication and connection. And this is kind of this really unique moment when all these cultures are re-engaging with each other in person. And so I think it's a really cool moment right now to jump in and make these kinds of connections. And also, I think there's something really to be said about funding for higher degrees past bachelor's is really, really hard to come by. And so it's an amazing opportunity for young professionals to really take their career to the next level without incurring a bunch of debt, and a way to make the world a more understanding, empathetic place. All right. Sarah, you haven't answered yet, right?
Yeah, happy to input here. I think one thing that I was really struck by earlier today, which is Beijing evening, I guess, I had the opportunity to sit in on some of the orientation for our scholars, and one of the topics was how to engage in a good debate and how to have a constructive argument. And I was really struck by this session because of how important it is, and how infrequently we stop to really think about what is the other side's perspective? What is the common ground here? Where can we decide what we're actually arguing about, and where there might be misunderstanding? I was so touched to hear the questions from our incoming scholars as they really begin to embark on this journey where they're going to come into a lot of difficult conversations and they're going to have friction, but to still try to find common ground and respect amongst one another. And that to me is the essence of our program, and something that I'm so excited for us to continue to endorse moving forward. So that's a little bit of my why, and especially right now in our world, I can't think of a better opportunity. With that, I'll turn over to Wyatt.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, team. I think for me, all of these reflections have made me think back to the last time I was at the college. I was down in our gym, our fitness center on campus. And one night we were doing a CrossFit workout, which is kind of a fitness challenge. And we were in a group of about 10 scholars and a couple of staff. And I remember there were 9 countries represented in that group of 10 people. And over the course of the night, we worked on a ton of stuff out in the courtyard, went over across the street from Schwarzman College and did some obstacles outside on the track. And just observing and participating in the conversations that were happening there. I mean, we're surrounded by leader, there was an engineer who had started a company and was working on this really interesting innovation. There was an entrepreneur. There was a politician and someone who had started a nonprofit. Everyone in that group was just a microcosm of the larger community, a leader of impact in their own sphere, in their own way. All of them leaders. And just in that moment, you're thinking about really the vision of this program, the mission of this program that we talked about before, which is as these scholars and alumni, as they step into positions of influence around the world, they're ultimately going to have a community of scholars, a network of scholars who they know, who are in the nations of the world, working in every field you can imagine, as we talked about. And as we start to tackle the global challenges that we're facing, the ones that are extremely urgent, the ones that are going to require us to work together as leaders across borders, across time zones, across languages and cultures, to look ahead 20, 30 years down the road from now, and even sooner than that. We're already seeing it with our alumni. To think that those scholars are really going to change the world. I mean, the scholars that we're selecting, the scholars that are a part of our community will change the world. That's just a fact, just as much as the sky is blue, we believe. And so being a part of that, that's what wakes me up every morning. That's what brings me to this work. That's what brings us to this work. And that's why we're so excited that you joined us tonight, that you're considering applying for this program at such a consequential time in global history, and a time when we hope you'll join us in this work to build a world that's based on understanding and collaboration and cooperation, and ultimately that fosters further global peace for all of us, for the nations of the world. So on that note, we'll wrap up tonight and just simply give you our gratitude for joining us. Thank you for engaging with us, for continuing this conversation. As I mentioned, this is just another step in the conversation. Please reach out to us through admissions@schwarzmanscholars.org. Engage with us on social media. We're posting a lot of content that will hopefully support you as you learn more about the program, and you'll start seeing content from the college, from our scholars who are on the ground in Beijing right now, embarking on their journey as members of the 7th cohort. So hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you are in the world. We are thinking of you as you go through this process. One other really helpful tool for you in this process is something that our admissions operations manager, Lisa, created over the course of the past couple of years, which is our application walkthrough. This is a really helpful opportunity for you coming up actually on September 14th is our next one, for you to join us and actually get online. We'll share our screen and we'll walk you through the different elements of the application. Many of you alluded to those tonight in your questions, asking about specific sections or essay prompts or things that you need to fill out. We're here to walk you through that. Our job as a team is to really set you up for success in this process. And so we are excited for that opportunity on September 14th to walk you through the application and do another live Q&A with you to make sure you're ready to hit submit on, or hopefully before, September 20th, coming up in 19 days. So thank you, team, for joining us tonight. I know it's been so helpful to hear from all of you. And thank you all, our attendees and our candidates, for your thoughtful questions and engaging with us. And with that, we'll sign off and wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks again for joining us.